Mohamed Hadid hasn't exactly had the best of luck with his real estate development career over the past couple of years. I mean, he's been involved in quite a few lawsuits. A few years back, his $100 million spec home at 901 Strada Vecchia Road was ordered to be torn down. His $250 million spec mansion was moved into bankruptcy last year after failing to sell. And most recently, Hadid filed for bankruptcy on a Beverly Hills project after failing to repay $55 million worth of loans on this project. You gotta hand it to the guy though, he's not exactly the type of person to give up. It seems like every couple of months we've got another story about Mohamed Hadid getting himself wrapped up into some new big real estate deal. Most of you guys following the channel for a while know about Hadid. He's a real estate developer who's made a lot of his fortune developing luxury hotels and homes. Plus, one of the reasons his face is in the news more than other real estate developers is because his daughters Gigi Hadid and Bella Hadid are two of the most famous models in the world. But if you just look at the career section of Hadid's Wikipedia, you'll see that he has basically had controversy surrounding his name his entire real estate development career. So I know you can't believe everything that you read on Wikipedia, but most of the sources on this page seem legit. Check it out. If we go down to the career section, so Hadid started his career restoring and reselling classic cars in DC. That's pretty cool. After that, he moved to Greece where he opened a nightclub on an island. And I guess he used the profits from that nightclub to start developing real estate in the United States. He started doing that around the 1980s. But right out of the gates, he started having problems. In the late 1980s, he faced 30 lawsuits from creditors and banks who claimed that he had not fulfilled financial obligations. Somehow though, after all of that, he bought a $150 million Ritz-Carlton in Washington and in New York. He converted a hotel into a Ritz-Carlton out here in Scottsdale, Arizona. But not long after that, in 1992, he had defaulted on more loans, this time on a project in Washington. And following that settlement, Hadid closed his local office, he lost his personal home to foreclosure, and he left the Washington area altogether. So yeah, this latest news is kind of just like the icing on the cake for Hadid's real estate career. He's been at this for 40-something years, and he's had trouble with his career pretty much since the beginning. It's kind of a lot to follow, but the gist of today's episode, we're going over 3 stories. The first one, which is how Hadid just filed for bankruptcy on his Summit Ridge property. Then we'll get into, as of a couple days ago, he settled another lawsuit on his Beverly Crest property, which was also in bankruptcy. And last, we'll take a look at a property that Hadid has actually completed. One of his properties in Beverly Hills just sold last month for $36 million. Diving into our first story on the Summit Ridge property, Hadid filed for BK on this one after his entity in charge of this project showed that they have no money in their bank account. This property is located at 2451 Summit Ridge Drive. It's a 4-acre lot in Beverly Hills that Hadid bought way back in 2015. Not super clear what he paid for it, but the asking price back then was about $7.9 million, so he probably paid somewhere around $7.9 million. But here we are like 9 years later, and according to all the reports that I could find, it sure seems like he's done just about nothing with this lot in all of this time. Hopping down onto Google Street View, unfortunately this is the closest that we're able to get to the property. It's behind these gates just a few hundred yards up on the left. What's up guys, Scott from the future here. So I'm sitting here editing this video and I noticed something kind of interesting. It doesn't change the story at all, but I think we maybe have been looking at the wrong house. Okay, so you know that I've been using this article from The Real Deal to kind of put this story together and get a lot of my notes together. They've got a picture of the house right there, which is the house we've been looking at. Down here, they tell us that the place is located at 2451 Summit Ridge Drive. So if we go to Google and we type in 2451 Summit Ridge Drive, it's going to drop the pin on that same house that showed up in the Real Deal article. But I was kind of poking around this neighborhood and I realized this house looks really complete, and why doesn't it show that it's been torn down? Then I go over here and I'm like, oh, that looks a lot more like an abandoned development project. See, I think we're onto something. I mean, check that out. That definitely looks like a project that he basically just walked away from. He did a bunch of grading and excavation. Maybe he did some of those retaining walls, but then he just left it. It still doesn't look like $54 million worth of money was spent on that lot, but at least it kind of explains where some more of that money went, because I was sitting here thinking, how in the world did he spend all this money when he literally didn't even knock the previous house down? The Real Deal reported that the LLC that owns this property filed for bankruptcy, showing that they owe $54.6 million to a bunch of different creditors, but the property itself is only worth around $35 million. So yeah, he's really upside down on this one. The article doesn't spell out who all of the debt is owed to, but we know there's a guy from Switzerland who lent the project $3.4 million. Contractors who have worked on the place are owed around $260,000. The Homeowners Association says Hadid has back payments of about $66,000. And then the biggest creditor is this company called Skylark Capital Management, who is suing Hadid over not finishing the project, not paying his property taxes, and not making payments on his $31.3 million loan that he took out from them in 2018. I did some digging to try to figure out who this Skylark Capital Management company was. I'm really just trying to figure out who in their right mind would lend Mohamed Hadid $30 million on a residential real estate development project after all of these messes that he's been wrapped up in. There's a handful of links to their company on Google. One is a LinkedIn page that says this is a privately held investment management company. The state of California has a few problems with these guys. In 2019, they filed a complaint saying that Skylark didn't file its annual reports that it's required to. Then in 2022, it looks like they actually got their license revoked for failing to pay some required assessment fees. I did find out that Skylark is actually owned or part owned by this other real estate developer and investor named Zach Vella. We'll get into that in a minute. Back to the Summit Ridge property, there's pretty limited information available online about exactly how this all went down, but just based on everything I've read about Hadid in the past and all my personal experience developing luxury real estate, here's the summary of the gist of how I think that this all unfolded. So Hadid buys the lot in 2015 for $8 million or so, and his dream is to probably spend 10 or 20 million bucks developing this luxury property and then reselling it for a profit. He spends the next 18 months or so in the design process where he's meeting with architects and engineers and designers, and they're just kind of deciding exactly how the house is going to look, what the floor plan is going to look like, what the features are going to be, all that stuff. Once everybody agrees on how the mansion's supposed to look and all of the specs, then they put together the plans, they submit them to the city for permits. I'm gonna guess by 2018 is when Hadid finally gets approval from everybody to build this house. That also aligns with when Skylark gave him this $31 million loan. But he gets this loan, and this is where things get foggy. It appears that he just completely abandons this project altogether. I cannot imagine why Hadid would just walk away from this project after receiving such an influx of capital. Not only are you needing to fork out tons of cash just to get the house designed and permitted, but then you're going to need to cough up big deposits to your builders and subcontractors to demolish the old house, get the lot graded, get lumber and trusses ordered to start building the new house, all of that. I know that the cost of construction in Beverly Hills is way higher than other parts of the world. It's like double the cost of how much it costs to build out here in Scottsdale, but still, it seems like Hadid borrowed way more money than he needed to get the ball rolling on this house on Summit Ridge. I mentioned the name Zach Vella earlier. Remember, Zach is the guy behind Skylark Capital, who is the company who lent Hadid $30 million on that Summit Ridge project. Well, it turns out Zach Vella also lent Hadid $40 or $50 million on his Beverly Crest development. This property was wrapped up in bankruptcy as well, and there was a big lawsuit involved where Vella was trying to get his money back through the bankruptcy, but as of like 3 days ago, that suit has been settled as well. The backstory on this one is pretty similar to the other ones, except it's just supersized. The lot here consists of 12 total parcels, which are spread out over 37 acres. And Hadid got approval to build a 19-bedroom home here on this site, which would be decked out with all of the bells and whistles that you could imagine. I guess at some point Hadid saw the writing on the wall here though, because when he presumably started to run out of money, he started to market the Cedarbrook property where you could either pay $92 million to get the permitted lot and then just do what you want with it, or you could pay him $250 million and he would build out this monster spec home that he had envisioned. If you're looking to sell a residential house for $250 million, obviously you're looking for a billionaire buyer, so finding that billionaire buyer is going to be like finding a needle in a haystack when this project is done. But hey, if the deal actually worked out exactly as planned and Hadid did find his buyer, he'd stand to make like $100 million on this deal. As with most projects of this caliber though, kind of like the one, things didn't exactly turn out the way that he wanted them to. By August of 2022, the Beverly Crest project moved into bankruptcy. In other words, Hadid ran out of money on this one as well. And back then, it was kind of starting to seem like this was Hadid's standard move. Just a year prior to this one, he had filed for bankruptcy on a neighboring lot in Franklin Canyon that he'd once tried to sell for $100 million. It's actually kind of unbelievable the amount of massive deals that Mohamed Hadid has had himself wrapped up in over the years. There's at least like 4 or 5 examples where he bought a lot for something like $10 million. He planned to sink another $50+ million into the place, and then he dreamed of reselling it for $100 million or more. If even one of these things panned out, it would have been an absolute home run of a payday for Hadid. But when they don't work out, it seems like the strategy is he just files for bankruptcy, he stiffs it to all of his creditors, and then he just moves on with his life. I don't really have the knowledge to understand if there's any legal ramifications to what Hadid is doing with all these real estate development projects, but he keeps getting away with it, and unless the city of Los Angeles just flat out shuts him down, or unless people stop lending him money, I think he's gonna keep trying to get away with it. So I mentioned at the start of the video that one of Hadid's projects has recently resold. Turns out every once in a while he actually does complete his builds. Okay, so the house is named La Palais, I think is how you pronounce it. Hadid bought this place in 2011. It just resold for $36 million. And here's a drone shot of the house. This place is massive. It's like 50,000 square feet. Just look at how many AC units are on the roof. Like, that right there is going to tell you how big this house is. They're telling us that the seller is this lady here, Lola, and her husband. They paid $32.75 million to buy this house off of Hadid back in 2013. And Mansion Global didn't have any photos, but this pricey pads website has some photos from a long time ago. Starting with this one, so this is what you see when you drive up to the place. This, I'm guessing, is what you see when you walk through the front door. Just look at all those intricate wood details, this wooden pocket door here on this side and on this side. This room on the left looks like a straight up museum. Here's one of the seating areas. Huge dining room with a fancy chandelier. The kitchen's actually pretty modern. A lot going on in this shot, but compared to the rest of the house, I actually really like this. Like, I like the furniture. I like how the island looks like it's almost floating. The movie theater is wild. Like, this is literally nicer than Harkins. It has an indoor swimming pool with some of the most intricate tile work I've ever seen. And of course, if you don't feel like swimming inside, there's a pool outside as well. So that's it for the La Palais house. I'll show you guys one more that Hadid finished real quick before we go. This one's even crazier than the last one. This article's from 2016 when the house was originally for sale. This home was called La Belvedere. That Pricey Pads website has got a bunch of photos of this one as well. It ended up selling for $56 million. It was originally asking $85 million. Hard to believe this place is in Bel Air. This is what you see when you drive up to this one. I'm guessing this is like the foyer area. Same thing, just so many intricate details throughout this space. Look in the other direction. We got a lot more wood in this one compared to the last one. Do these paintings on the wall actually curve? Because if they do, that is awesome. We got another fancy little seating area here. This is what the dining room looks like in this house. They really step up the woodwork in this one. Look at this room. And I think Hadid actually lived in this house for a while, if I'm not mistaken, before he ended up selling it. I bet you there's like $5 million worth of woodwork just in this room alone. Here's a smaller dining room with a kitchen in the back and a bunch of brickwork all over the ceiling in here. Another seating area. You got plenty of places to sit in this house if you live here. Looks like a little wine room. Another crazy movie theater. Like, look at this movie theater. How much money do you guys think he spent on this place? I'm gonna guess this is a $10 million movie theater. The house comes with a poker room. No clue what this room is, but looks nice. And then here's your view from out back overlooking the pool in the city. See, when Hadid does actually finish a house, he does it right. You gotta hand it to him. Hard telling if we're ever gonna see Hadid finish another residential real estate project. I mean, he did have a good run a while back, but Based on the past couple of years, it seems like his real estate luck is kind of running out. Plus, let's face it, the guy is 75 years old at this point, so you'd think that he would rather spend his time just chilling in retirement rather than stressing over a bunch of big real estate deals. That's a wrap for today's episode. If you guys enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button down below before you go. That really helps the channel out a lot. I'll see you next week.